And we're here with Democratic Sheriff's candidate Charmaine McGuffey, formerly Major Charmaine McGuffey of the Sheriff's Office. Thanks for joining us today. Why should the people of Hamilton County nominate you for sheriff over your opponent, Sheriff Jim Neal?
Well, because I have been with the department for 33 years, and I rose in the rank from sergeant, lieutenant, captain to major, the highest ranking woman in the history of the Sheriff's Office. And in that role, I moved the department forward from the worst jail in the state of Ohio to the best jail in the state of Ohio. Further, I have a vision and I have a plan to address fiscally and morally the issues of mass incarceration, to help fix the system from the inside out, as well as maintain safe communities and help people move along in their lives.
The sheriff's budget, as you know, has been cut over the years. What can you do to maximize resources?
Well, what we can do is invite the community in, which is what I did when I was the major. I invited the community in and created multiple programs to move people along in their lives. Not just treatment, which is super important, but also things like, how do you get your driver's license back? How can you get a job? Here's how you write a resume. Things that move people along in life. And I did all of those things at no cost to the taxpayer, because we are already funding many different community programs that can reach out and help people who need to move along in their life and not live inside our jail at $70 a day.
Does Hamilton County need a new jail?
Hamilton County needs to fix and improve within the structure that they have. You know, what we have to do first is look inside and find out what our best practices really are and how best we can improve them and move the mark, which we have not done for many decades. I think first we address that, then we look further down the road and say, now what are we left with? Because there is absolutely no funding for a new jail. Nobody wants a new jail. It's been on the ballot twice. Both times it was voted down. We have a lot of infrastructure in our county to fix and use our money for, and I say let's focus on fixing the problem from the inside out, and I believe we can do that.
As sheriff, what can you do to reduce recidivism?
What we can do to reduce recidivism is we can embrace offices like reentry. We can embrace programs like Cincinnati Works. We can embrace programs that move people along in housing. We can bring people in who can peer mentor some of the people that are in jail, who quite frankly were climbing a hill when they got there. We don't want them to be left with a mountain when we open the door and let them out. I mean, I understand that there are people who need to be incarcerated, and people do need to pay the consequences for their behavior, certainly that. But at some point in time, we have to stop being the caretaker and the funder of someone's life. We need to move them on. They're adults. They can benefit from rehabilitation. Many of them have. Many of them want that and will embrace opportunities. So I believe that we can move that system along in a much more efficient way than we ever have.
Should more communities eliminate their local police service and contract with the Sheriff's Office? And if so, which communities?
Well, you know, now that's an interesting question, because what I think about it is this. I think communities should weigh in as to whether they want that, because I've heard both sides of the argument. I know that the communities that the Sheriff's Office currently patrols are extremely happy with our men and women in uniform. We put out an excellent product. We have excellent officers and services. But I've also heard from community members of other communities who say, you know what, we like the feel of having our own police department. We like the fact that these guys that are in our police department grew up here in our neighborhood, that we already have those relationships. So, you know, it's a conversation that we need to have, but it's one that the communities really have to weigh in heavily about.
Now, if you were to be elected, and you would have to obviously get through the general,
yes,
what would your priorities be for the Sheriff's Office?
My priorities for the Sheriff's Office would be, one, to address that budget issue, because it's hurting all of the other county agencies. When the Sheriff's Office is collectively over 7 years, $18 million over budget, that is something that needs to be addressed immediately. The second thing I want to address are the working conditions of the men and women who are in uniform. I want to improve those conditions, and I want to improve the staffing model so that the men and women that work in our department are motivated to come to work every day. are proud to wear the black and gold, and a big part of that is making sure that there's accountability in the department. The third thing that I will improve is, as I said, the national trend is to move people out of incarceration. So I will improve the efficiency of the office to do that. And that also means improving our infrastructure in the way of data so that we can share that data with people who want to help us and find out who really is incarcerated in our jail and how did they get there and how do we move them out of there.
Is there a state law that you believe should change?
I really am, I'm not really prepared to weigh in on state laws. I'm not really sure. That's kind of a broad question. I think as the sheriff of Hamilton County, certainly when you are in charge of the jail, the court systems for security and law enforcement, I think you have a very strong voice. I think you can influence policy and procedure, and I think that that's an important role of the sheriff.
Now, the elephant in the room here is kind of the fact that you and Jim Neal, the current sheriff, longtime friends. I think you went to high school together, maybe even a little bit of college.
Yes.
You guys go way back. He made you a major. He had that faith in you. So can you say something positive about him?
I can say that Jim Neal is a nice guy. And I can say that I appreciate that he gave me that opportunity. And I can also say that I made him look really good. I worked my hardest. I worked day and night. I went to community meetings off the clock. I worked to make sure that he was proud of the product that he hired me to do. And my issue here isn't just running against one person. What I'm doing is I'm bringing in a vision and a plan for the department. I'm not interested in a race against one person. And so what I will say about Jim Neal is he's a nice guy, but I do not think he's done a good job as an administrator for the sheriff's office.
Is there anything else that you think that primary voters should keep in mind?
I think primary voters should keep in mind that this is our opportunity to embrace change in our criminal justice system. The entire nation is moving towards this. We can't miss the boat on this. This is a time for us to say criminal justice reform is here and it's now, and we need to work on it, and we need all hands on deck. And I know from my experience, they're out there. They want a leader who will engage in that, and that's me.
Charmaine McGuffey, Democratic candidate for sheriff, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.